The night the greatest army was defeated by the invisible. That night, under the cold moonlight, 185,000 soldiers rested, confident that dawn would bring victory. The swords, sharpened by the experience of past battles, awaited the final order. These men, elite warriors of the ruthless Assyrian Empire, had devastated kingdoms and reduced cities to ashes. No army could rival their advance. However, something beyond human understanding was about to happen, an event that would change the course of history. The year was approaching 701 BC. Jerusalem, besieged and with no escape, faced an inevitable fate. King Hezekiah and his people were cornered, witnessing the relentless siege of the most feared army in the world. The Assyrian king Sennacherib, a cruel conqueror and a formidable strategist, had already reduced entire fortresses to ruins. The lands of Judah fell one by one, and now only the capital remained, the last bastion of resistance. The Assyrians were not mere invaders. They were masters of psychological warfare. Their campaigns were relentless, and chronicles of the time describe an army advancing like a raging river, sweeping everything in its path. The prophet Isaiah had warned about this overwhelming force. Therefore the Lord will bring upon them the mighty floodwaters of the river, the king of Assyria, with all his army. Isaiah 8:7. The city of Nineveh, the heart of the empire, was a monument to its glory and brutality. Its splendor impressed, but its arrogance foreshadowed its fall. The prophet Nahum described the greatness and fury of that army. The shields of the soldiers are red, the warriors are clad in scarlet, the chariots flash like fire and are arrayed for battle. Nahum 2:3-4. Under Sennacherib's command, the Assyrian army reached the gates of Jerusalem. They had already taken Samaria, captured the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom, and dispersed its inhabitants throughout the empire. Now they directly challenged the God of Israel. The Assyrian messenger Rabshakeh brought a message that mixed threat and blasphemy. In Hebrew, so that all the people could hear, he mocked, "Do not let Hezekiah deceive you when he says that the Lord will deliver you. Has any god of any nation ever delivered his land from the hands of the king of Assyria?" 2 Kings 18:32-33. While the Assyrians proclaimed an anticipated victory, within the walls of Jerusalem, a man knelt before the only power that truly mattered. Hezekiah was not an ordinary ruler. From a young age, he had demonstrated unwavering faith. His first actions as king included restoring the temple, purifying worship, and gathering the people back around the Lord. His name meant, "The Lord is my strength," and that conviction guided every one of his decisions. In the face of the imminent threat, he tore his garments in a sign of humility and went to the temple. There he spread Sennacherib's letter before the altar and prayed, "O Lord, God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. Listen to the words of Sennacherib, who has insulted the living God." 2 Kings 19:15-16. He did not ask for deliverance out of pride or for his own glory, but so that the world would know who the true Lord of history was. The answer came through the prophet Isaiah. "He will not enter this city or shoot an arrow here. He will return by the way he came, and he will not enter this city, declares the Lord." Isaiah 37:33. The promise was clear. The city would remain intact. But how could this be possible against the most powerful army of the time? The sun set on an arrogant army and a city in prayer. In the Assyrian tents, the warriors slept, assured that by dawn, Jerusalem would fall. But that night, something happened. Then the angel of the Lord went out and killed 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. 2 Kings 19:35. Without a single soldier of Judah lifting a sword, without an arrow being shot from the walls of Jerusalem, The enemy army was reduced to nothing. When dawn broke, the field that was once filled with soldiers was now silent, an inexplicable massacre. The mighty King Sennacherib, who had defied God, fled humiliated back to Nineveh. Years later, Sennacherib met a tragic end. In his own temple, while worshipping his god Nisroch, he was assassinated by his own sons. Thus, the man who dared to mock the God of Israel fell before an inert idol. The Assyrian Empire, which seemed invincible, entered into decline. Meanwhile, Jerusalem stood firm, just as the Lord had promised. This story transcends the centuries, carrying lessons that remain as relevant as ever. King Hezekiah demonstrated that true strength does not lie in armies or military strategies, but in trusting the Lord. While the Assyrians relied on their military power and reputation of invincibility, Jerusalem found protection in God. The fate of Sennacherib proved that arrogance precedes a fall. No nation, no matter how powerful, can challenge the Creator with impunity. His failure and tragic end evidence that human pride can never overcome divine will. Moreover, the narrative makes it clear that the greatest battles are won first in prayer. Before any action, Hezekiah knelt and placed his trust in God. His response did not come through human strength, but through the intervention of the Lord, who fulfilled exactly what he had promised. Jerusalem would not fall. This event is not just a record of the past, but an eternal testimony of divine power. It reminds us that God is faithful to his promises, and that regardless of the threats that arise, those who trust in him will never be abandoned. The account of the destruction of the Assyrian army is not just a biblical milestone. Historical records, such as Sennacherib's prism, confirm that he never managed to conquer Jerusalem. Even ancient historians like Herodotus mention a mysterious plague that annihilated an Assyrian army in a single night. The message is clear: no empire, no matter how powerful, can withstand when God decides to act. Hezekiah and his people saw it with their own eyes, and this truth continues to resonate throughout history. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31.